Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield. I'm the Get Fit Guy, and in today's episode, I'm going to give you 3 lessons that fitness enthusiasts can learn from modern hunters. Now, think of the old school, good old boy, traditional American hunter. What comes to mind? Maybe a redneck in a tree stand over some kind of a cordon feeder? Perhaps someone sitting for hours on end in a roughly constructed camouflage blind, occasionally tapping away on Candy Crush on their phone? Or maybe somebody driving a big truck with a gun rack on it, windows down, peering out into the field for some game to shoot. Well, true hunting, the way our ancestors would have hunted for their nutritional needs, is pretty different than what we think of when we think of hunters these days. But fortunately, many modern hunters are now embracing the concept of enhancing nature and sensory awareness, wilderness tracking, and survival, and they're now incorporating pretty impressive amounts of physiologically appropriate hunt training, breathing techniques, and heart rate control. So in this article, I'm going to give you 3 specific strategies and lessons you can learn from a modern fit hunter. Lessons that you can take with you to maximize your fitness success, even if you're not a hunter and have zero desire to be one. So let's start with this one: natural movement, functional fitness, and agility. In a recent podcast interview over at bengreenfieldfitness.com with the founder of something called Train to Hunt, and I'll link to that one in the show notes. Just go to quickanddirtytips.com and look for this episode number 324. My guest, Kenton Claremont, described how hunters are now incorporating natural fitness movements into their training routines. Stuff like squats and lunges, pushes, pulls, mobility, and beyond. And this concept of using natural movement to get fit isn't a new concept. It was pioneered by a guy named Georges Hébert, who was a French PE teacher and fitness instructor way back in the early 1900s. So this guy was an officer in the French Navy before World War I. He was stationed in a town in France, and in 1902, there was a catastrophic volcanic eruption, and he coordinated the daring escape and rescue of 700 people from the disaster. Now, that experience had a profound effect on him and inspired him to learn how to combine fitness and athletic skills with courage and altruism, eventually developing this into his personal motto: be strong to be useful. Now, after that experience, he traveled through the world studying physical development and movement skills of indigenous peoples who moved naturally. In Africa, he found tribes who had amazing bodies and were flexible, nimble, skillful, enduring, resistant, but they had no gyms and no personal trainers. They just had gymnastics-like movements in nature, like climbing trees and swimming, sprinting, throwing rocks, and wrestling. So when he eventually returned to France, Hébert became a physical instructor for the French Marines, where he designed his own system of PE, which he called the natural method, a form of movement influenced by Greek gymnasia, German Prussian gymnastics, and even French dancing, and most importantly, a form of movement primarily executed in nature and surrounded by trees, rocks, water, logs, and other obstacles. Well, the natural method promotes the physical qualities of natural, asymmetric forms of resistance, such as awkward rocks and logs, combined with muscle coordination and speed, being able to walk, run, jump, move on all fours frontwards, backwards, and sideways, and having the physical capability to climb, to keep balance, to throw, to defend yourself, and to swim. These skills are combined with the mental qualities of courage, coolness under pressure, respect, willpower, and the ability to overcome obstacles like the fear of falling, the fear of jumping across distances, the fear of plunging into cold water, the fear of walking on an unstable surface, etc. So if hunters, along with a growing number of parkour athletes, gymnasts, obstacle course racers, and beyond, are tapping into these natural movement principles, there's no reason you can't do it too. Now, number 2 is forest bathing. And there's no denying that hunters spend plenty of time in the forest and steeped deep in nature, and an emerging body of research shows there are distinct health benefits to be derived from this, especially when combined with the mindfulness and awareness necessary to track an animal or find wild edibles, to watch tracks and game trails, to pay attention to wind, and to notice the tiniest details of the landscape that can give you clues into where game might be traveling or living. Now, there was one article recently that highlighted research from as early as the 1960s that shows that early life experience with a lot of the bacteria we find in outdoor situations, along with environmental stressors like cold and heat, can positively influence longevity and health. And that paper highlights the co-evolutionary relationship between microbiota in the environment and the human host, and shows there's lower health, more anxiety, and more depression, and increased incidence of immune issues in developed nations that have become too sanitized. with respect to not being outside around dirt and trees and animals. Now, there was another Japanese study of something called Shunrin Yoku, which is defined as taking in the forest atmosphere or forest bathing. And in that study, they found that elements of the environment, like the odor of wood, the sound of running stream water, and the scenery of the forest, can provide relaxation and reduce stress. And people in that study experienced lower levels of cortisol, a lower pulse rate, and lower blood pressure. Now, this should all come as no surprise because scientists have long known that sunlight can lower depression. And one study at the University of Essex found something as simple as a walk in the countryside reduced depression in 71% of the people in the study. They also found that nature therapy, also known as ecotherapy, and spending as little as 5 minutes in a natural setting, such as walking in a park or gardening in the backyard, could improve mood and self-esteem and motivation. I have a podcast over at bengreenfieldfitness.com about forest bathing in which my guests and I discuss even more research that shows that things as simple as spending time in the trees, walking in forests, exercising on nature trails, and hiking outdoors exposes you to tiny particles and phytochemicals that the plants release, and that helps to decrease salivary cortisol, depression, and anger. And then finally, there's this concept of getting into the zone. Now, in the field of positive psychology, a flow state is a mental state of operation in which you are fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, involvement, and enjoyment in an activity. It's characterized by complete absorption in what you do, and it's also called the zone. A perfect example of being in the zone is the low heart rate, extreme focus, alpha brainwave production, physical and mental awareness a hunter needs to have when focusing on taking a shot, especially when combined with the increased push towards getting into the zone that nature immersion can offer. Take your vagus nerve, for example. When it comes to hormone balance, your sleep, your mood, your gut function, your performance, your cognitive power, and just about every other body and brain variable you want to optimize, nothing beats addressing the health of your vagus nerve. It connects to the brain, the gut, the heart, the liver, the pancreas, the kidney, the lungs, the neck, the fertility organs, the ears, the tongue. You get the idea. And when it's properly functioning, getting into the zone is effortless and easy. Now, by engaging in things like breath control, sleep, meditation, gratefulness practice, yoga, and other strategies that I highlight in a recent podcast I recorded on how to hack your nervous system and enhance the vagus nerve, and that's over at bengreenfieldfitness.com. I'll link to it in the show notes for this episode. Modern hunters are now tapping into many of these same concepts to focus better, shoot straighter, and decrease trigger panic in the field. All extremely important for you too as a health enthusiast. So how can you get started into tapping into your vagus nerve and getting into the zone more easily? Well, start here. Slow breathing. Once you go below 10 breaths a minute, you start to engage your relaxed parasympathetic nervous system, and that helps your body settle down when it's been stressed. Slow breathing activates the vagus nerve, and this increases alpha waves in your brain, calming waves that foster a relaxed yet alert state of mind. There are plenty more advanced breathing tactics in a book I recently reviewed called Breathe, and I'll link to that in the show notes too. So that's it. Let's review these 3 lessons you can learn from the modern fit hunting community. Number 1, incorporate natural movement into your fitness routine, preferably outdoors in nature. Number 2, spend plenty of time surrounded by the forest or other green nature settings and be mindful and aware as possible when you're in those settings. Number 3, learn how to get into the zone by breathing properly and enhancing the health of your vagus nerve. And armed with these 3 techniques, you'll be able to tap into a whole new level of physical and mental awareness that you can use to enhance your career, your health, and your life, and to become better at any challenges you encounter out in the field or beyond. Now, if you have questions, comments, or feedback about how to get fit like a hunter, then you can join the conversation over at facebook.com/getfitguy. There's always some great conversations going on over there. That's facebook.com/getfitguy. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.